Alright, in this video I'm going to show you how to solve general motion problems using the method of instantaneous center of zero velocity. So to get started, just before we bring up the general motion problem, it's worth discussing what that is. If we have a situation like this where there's just like a bar swinging around a point, then we have pure rotation. And if you look at any point on the bar, perhaps here, it's going to have a tangential velocity going like that. And if you were to draw a line perpendicular to its line of action, on that point that it's at, it would pass through point A. If you also drew another point somewhere on this object, perhaps right here, its tangential velocity is also going to be oriented tangent to its circular path. And again, if you draw that line perpendicular to its line of action, it's going to pass through point A as well. Both of them are passing through point A. This holds true for any point that we can identify on this object that's undergoing perfect rotation or rotation about a fixed axis, and otherwise we can talk about that as circular motion. If the bar was to spin into another position, let's say it's over here now, you could do the exact same thing. You could identify multiple points, or at least two, and drawing that line, they're always going to be rotating about point A. So in any moment that we can describe in any of the 360 degrees of rotation, the center of zero velocity is point A, because if you look at the tangential velocity at point A, it's going to be basically zero. It will be decreasing as we approach the point that's rotating about. The tangential velocity is going to get smaller and smaller until it is nothing. Now if you mention some other object here that is not experiencing pure rotation but is general motion, it's maybe flipping through the air in some sort of hectic manner. Let's say that with the actual velocity of some point here is off like that, and then another actual velocity of a different point is like this. There's no fixed axis for an object like this to be rotating about that we can always refer to, but in any particular moment in time, we can look for an instantaneous center of zero velocity, and all we do is we draw a perpendicular line through the point that we have taken the velocity at. So this one would be like that, and this velocity here, the perpendicular, would be like this. You can indicate that with 90-degree angles. So as long as you have two known velocities, then you can identify the instantaneous center of zero velocity, and which we sometimes refer to as IC for instantaneous center. So if this bar was to flip and go somewhere else, let's draw it on, let's say its second position is something like that, and its new velocities in this other moment in time or something like this. You could draw on the perpendicular lines, and let's just use a different color to indicate that, and you would find a new center of instantaneous velocity, which in the case 2 would be, let's see, IC2, and that's IC1, or this is position 1 and this is position 2. So for something that's experiencing general motion, the instantaneous center of velocity is always going to be moving, but with a minimum of two known velocities, we're able to identify it for that particular moment in that particular orientation. Now this becomes really useful because we have this expression for tangential velocity where we have v is equal to omega r. And in this case, if we just measure our radius, so we have if we call this v1, this would be r1, and then this would be r2 and v2. So if we know any of these two variables, then we can find the third. And typically that's a situation where we'll be asked for one and we'll be given the others, or we'll be able to find out what they are. Now with a more complicated problem like this, let's just focus in on the first drawing. We have, let's say, v1 and v2, and this would be r1 and r2, and they both share a common angular velocity. Then there's usually enough information provided to us in the problem on the original diagram of whatever system we're analyzing. We'll be able to go from one known value to the other. Usually it's starting with something like v1, and we can find r1, and then we have the expression where it would be v1 is equal to omega r1, and from there we'd be able to solve for what omega is, and then we would be able to apply that to the other set of equations here, and we'd have v2 is equal to omega r2, and once omega is known, usually r2 would be able to be found, and then we can just plug that in to get the other velocity. So for problems with simple geometry, or even just geometry that we can identify, this can end up being a much faster way to solve than using relative or absolute motion analysis. So let's actually bring up the crankshaft from the last video and we can solve it using this method. So we're given some information here. We have the constant angular velocity of AB, 25 radians per second, rotating about point A. And we're given the length of each member, and we're looking for the velocity at point C at this exact moment when the crank is at 30 degrees off the horizontal. So right away we can identify what VB is. It's going to be tangent to the circular path that it's traveling, and VB will just be equal to omega AB times RAB. RAB is just the length of AB. It's just more common to see it written that way, so that's going to be equal to 25 radians per second times 0.2 meters, and VB is equal to 5 meters per second. You can see what the angle is here if you want by continuing this and then drawing on the horizontal. And we know that this is 30 degrees, so that this must be 30 degrees, which makes this interior angle here 60 degrees. So we can indicate that 60, like that. It's also helpful to identify the other angles of the triangle. So again, we have alpha here. We can use the sine law to figure that out with sine 30 over 0.5 is equal to sine alpha over 0.2, and we get that alpha is equal to 11.537 degrees. And then we can label the top angle here gamma, and that is just equal to 180 degrees minus 30 minus 11.537, which gives us 138.463 degrees. Okay, so when we look at point B here, we have VB labeled, and this is the actual velocity of the hinge at B. It's equal to the tangential velocity of the crank at that point, but also actual pin there, whether you're looking at member AB or BC, this is the absolute velocity of it. It's going off like that at 60 degrees. And we also know that point C down here, this the absolute velocity of it is definitely moving to the left. It only has an x component, there is no y component to it. So if we want to draw in our perpendicular lines to those velocities, so the one for point C would come straight up like this. And then for B, it would actually pass through A and B to be perpendicular and go off the screen. So let's just slide that down a little bit so we can see. And this point of intersection is going to be the instantaneous center of zero velocity for member BC at this exact moment in time. So that makes this line here RB, and we're going to call this RB with respect to IC, and it makes this one RC with respect to IC. And I'll actually just erase these trailing ends just so it doesn't trip us up at all. For the actual length that we're measuring, it is the orange line, as you can see. Alright, so now we have this triangle here, and we want to figure out what some of the angles are. If we look here at point B, we've already measured this angle here to be 138. And so if we take 180 minus that, we're going to find this interior angle here. And 180 minus 138.463 is 41.537 degrees. Same in here, we found alpha to be 11.537, and this is a right angle, so 90 minus that gives us 78.463 degrees for this angle. And then 180 minus 78.463 minus 41.573 gives us this last angle of 60 degrees. So now we have a triangle with 3 known angles and 1 known side, so we can use sine law to find out some of the unknowns. So if we take sine of 78.463 over RBIC is equal to sine 60 over 0.5. Then we can rearrange for RBIC to be 0.566 meters. We can do it one more time to find RCIC. So we have sine 41.537 over RCIC equals sine of 60 over 0.5. and we just find that RCIC is equal to 0.383 meters. So let's just move these so we don't get confused. We'll bring this one over here, and we can bring this one right there. So now all we need to do is plug in these equations into our expression that relates the tangential velocity about point IC, the instantaneous center, to the angular velocity and the radius. So we have VB is equal to omega BC times RBIC, and we can just reorganize that, so we have omega BC is equal to VB over RBIC, which is equal to 5 meters per second over 0.566 meters, which gives us omega BC to be 8.83 radians per second. And then we can just switch colors and we can write the expression for VC, which is equal to omega BC times RCIC. And because they share the same common omega BC, we actually have enough to solve this. So that is equal to 8.83 radians per second times 0.383 meters. And we're going to find that VC is equal to 3.38 meters per second. And that actually is a positive value, and that is positive because we've drawn it going to the left, and so we have correctly assumed that it's going the right direction. So we can indicate that it is indeed to the left. So yeah, that's the exact same velocity that we got for point C in the last two videos where we did scalar and vector analysis using relative motion. But you can see that this way is actually, it's a lot more simple. There's a whole lot less math when you use the center of instantaneous velocity. So it's a really good method to use if it's available to you. But yeah, that's it for this one, and join me in the next video and we'll solve the same crankshaft one more time using absolute motion analysis.